Well, that was certainly a game to watch. I'm Roman Tomashoff. Lars Hanson is here. It's time for Locked On Huskies, and this should be a fun one.
You are Locked On Huskies, your daily podcast on the Washington Huskies, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back. This is Locked On Huskies post-game edition. I'm Roman Tomashoff. That's Lars Hanson. Our audio is definitely going to be a little interesting today as Lars Hanson is coming to you live from the press box in Michigan State. We are pulling out all the stops to make sure that that's a gorgeous view up there, to make sure you get all the coverage that you need here on Locked On Huskies, which is the #1 Husky podcast. I'm going to say that with all the information that we have. And we got to remind everybody real quick that today's episode is brought to you by LinkedIn. These days, every new potential hire can feel like a high-stakes wager for your small business. That's why LinkedIn Jobs helps find the right people for your team faster and for free. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockdowncollege. Terms and conditions apply. Lars Hanson, it's great to have you here with me today, as always. Now, tell me a little bit about what you saw there being in East Lansing.
Well, I mean, I'll be honest. The people are great. The fans were fantastic from beginning, before the game, everything, the hospitality was great, all that. And then the game kicked off, and those fans got quiet in a hurry. The student section truly, I put out the tweet, they dipped at halftime. They were good. They were almost empty by the end of the third quarter. I don't blame them for leaving because Michigan State gave the fans no reason to stick around. I mean, up until the fourth quarter, when they probably had the biggest play of the game against Darren Baskins, which again, that's not to insult Darren Barkins, right? That's not an insult to Darren. But I mean, when Caden Hauser, who I told you was a good quarterback, and I maintain that he will be a good quarterback for Michigan State. He will be a good quarterback one of these days, probably next year or 2 years from now. But other than that, there was nothing of substance from Michigan State from start to finish.
I love this comment we got from Dolphin MJF as I was, making the post game here. It's bad when we already have a post game show and it's only the third quarter. Well, me here in Redmond, Washington, gorgeous, great day out here today. I sat here on my couch and I laughed through the majority of this game because it was just so hilarious to watch. One of the big things that stood out to me in the pregame was that Michigan State fan who I know is like Dave Softy Mahler put out a tweet that said Michael Penix saw this and laughed at it and then threw for 475 yards. It was a McDonald's job application filled out with Michael Penix's name, and that's all I have to say about that. But Michael Penix, is he the Heisman frontrunner now?
I mean, man, if it's not, it's him or Caleb. It's one of the two at this point. I think Caleb probably has a slightly better number. But here's the thing about Michael Penix that I wanted to really hit on in this show. Last season, he started off with 300 yards, 300 plus. It was like, whoa, we got a consistent 300-yard quarterback. 400-yard performance to start each game of the season for all three non-conference games. And I would not just be surprised if that trend just continues to where he's having 400-yard clips at ease, because it really was effortless. I mean, that I don't know how it looked on the television for you, but that throw from deep in the end zone to Rome it looked effortless. It truly looked effortless. But that was just one of the examples that we can flip to 20 or 30 for the game today. Michael Penix is playing at a different level than where he played at last year. I think that's a fair assessment to say at this point in the season.
So that was actually just the first thing that I wanted to bring up is this has been a theme through 3 games so far. The Huskies just beat Michigan State 41-7, and it felt like they could have scored 80.
Can we just run back what my score prediction? I gave Michigan State a little too much credit in the score prediction department, but can we just run back what my score was? I don't know if we have the video or not.
I don't have the video off the top of my on my hands, but you were getting there.
And let's be honest, if it wasn't for a couple of drives there, I mean, they settled for 2 Grady Gross field goals, which is cool that Grady Gross got his first couple of career field goals. But aside from that, those could have been 14 points, and boom, we're talking about almost a 60-burger here in East Lansing.
And even a 60-burger feels like there was just points left on the table. Because you look at that Dylan Morris interception at the end of the game. It was not his fault. One thing, I know we'll get to the receivers a little bit more in the next segment here, but Tayshawn Lyons struggled with those same kind of easy drops on just quick slants and timing routes early in fall camp. And they kind of did rear their head today, which led to the one Husky turnover. But I really do think that Michael Penix does deserve to be considered the Heisman frontrunner at this point in time. And yes, you can kind of balance him and Caleb Williams out. By the way, just for everybody who is watching on YouTube, feel free to leave your comments here in the comment section. We will try to get to some of them. I hope you agree with us or you disagree with us. Either way, that'd be great. We'd love to have just a conversation with you guys just kind of throughout the show here. But I really do feel like he does deserve to be the Heisman frontrunner at this point. And whatever odds that FanDuel is putting out there and saying this is where we have Michael Penix right now, whether it's third, fourth, some friends were sending me some conversations where Texas fans or Florida State people were like, oh, well, Jordan Travis or Quinn Ewers is above him. Okay, well then give me those odds. The way that Michael Penix is playing right now, Caleb Williams is amazing, and he deserves all the credit in the world. He does not look like he's playing anywhere near on the level Michael Penix is.
I think it's more it's the dynamic difference in their game where Penix is more the natural passer. Caleb has the ability to run a little bit more, but I still think we saw Penix's ability to stand in the pocket, move around in the pocket, do some things, buy time. And so he's not just a pocket, statue quarterback. I think he's truly going to be that well-rounded guy. Again, he won't have the legs that Caleb does, but I think from a Heisman perspective, the teams that Washington have played are better than the teams that USC has played at this point in the season. Yes. That said, Washington's performance today, I think it was they had San Jose, USC had San Jose State, right, with a big blowout. So again, they're blowing out the teams they should be blowing out, but I think the way Penix is doing it, I think just at this point in the season, you do have to give him that nod a little bit more. And again, that doesn't, you don't win or lose the Heisman at this point in the season, but being a front runner, I think is something Penix certainly deserves to have next to his name at this point in the season.
No, absolutely. And I think that a lot of this, just trying to force this conversation to the forefront, comes a lot from what happened last season. Where last season, there were a whole lot of conversations that were, especially once, everything with the losses comes into play. And there were so many things that was, oh, well, Michael Penix, he's just not in the conversation right now, no matter how well he's playing. And then he makes that late push. The Huskies are ranked. They beat Oregon. All of that kind of stuff happens. And then all of a sudden, oh, hey, Michael Penix, wow, this guy's really good. He finished 8th in Heisman voting. He really could have been invited to New York last year.
I think we both hit on it in a previous episode. It was the Arizona State game that knocked him out of contention. I think absolutely. But here's the thing. Did they struggle on the grass today?
Nope.
No, I don't think grass is really an issue. Why do you think I told you grass was not an issue going into this game? Because, again, if it was going to be issue 7 or 8. It was going to be Parker Braylesford, the lights were too big for him and standard, which I'm not saying these are the case, but I'm saying there was a bunch of other things.
Definitely didn't happen today.
Exactly, but I'm saying there were so many other things that had to come into play before the grass ever mattered. And so I think, but to that point, Penix checked every box. Dylan Johnson checked most every box. Tybo Rogers checked the box. Ryan Grubb, by the way, Ryan was the happiest guy that I've seen post-game in a long time. Not that he's not usually happy after the game, but I think he came into this game. I told you when they lost 70-13, when they were both at Kalen DeBoer and Ryan Grubb were both at Eastern Michigan, they wanted to send a message here, and they probably, to our point, could have scored even 2 or 3 more touchdowns. But it was such a dominating offensive line of scrimmage controlled game from start to finish. That's what makes Ryan Grubb super happy, and I think that's what allowed Penix to cook as well as he did today.
Absolutely. And, as we move on here, I want to give one more shout out to that Michigan State fan who put that job application out there for Michael Penix, because I think that guy, he might end up being LinkedIn at some point in time here very, very soon. These days, every new potential hire can feel like a high stakes wager for your small business. You want to be 100% certain that you have access to the best qualified candidates available. That's why you should check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs helps find the right people for your team faster and for free. All you have to do is add your job and the purple hashtag hiring frame to your LinkedIn profile to spread the word that you're hiring. Simple tools like screening questions make it easy to focus on candidates with just the right skills and experience so you can quickly prioritize who you'd like to interview and hire. Speaking of which, Michael Penix, that was a great job interview for, what's going to happen at the NFL Combine for him very soon. That's why small businesses rate LinkedIn Jobs number 1 in delivering quality hires versus leading competitors. LinkedIn Jobs help you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnCollege. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnCollege. Post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. All right. First, right off the top here, as we get into a receiver combination or the conversation, conversation combination, it's all there. We're going to talk about it all. Emerald City Express here asks, is there any injury update on Jalen McMillan? Yes, Kalen DeBoer did say that he will be good to go against Cal next week, so that was a really good sign. Kind of just felt like it was a scary looking injury, but he was able to kind of get up and walk it off after a couple of minutes. And it just kind of felt like the Huskies were just so far ahead at that point. There was no need to risk putting him back in at any point.
I will say he did finish 4 yards shy of 100, which would give UW 3 receivers with 100 yards each. So I'm not saying nothing was on the line, but I do think they made the right decision.
No, they absolutely did. Keeping him safe is the top priority. And then I want to talk about Rome Odunze, man. We talk about him week in and week out, but it's for like there's a reason for it. He 8 catches, 180 yards. Didn't score a touchdown today, but he really didn't need to because Jack Westover just had 3.
I was going to say, I mean that'll be that was my piece on Inside the Huskies, which will be coming up here shortly. Is Westover had a massive impact in this game, and I think the one thing that Kalen DeBoer hit on post game was Westover also does the little things well. So he's the guy that's blocking in those big plays that Rome and Polk and J-Mac and all those other big receivers end up getting the credit for. I mean, he was in the play that allowed Jeremy to get a touchdown on the first drive of the game. There are things that Westover does to where those 3 touchdowns that doubled his career mark coming into the game. Let's just think about that for a second. He had 3 touchdowns coming into the game. He had 3 in the game in the first half. So it wasn't just that he doubled, had maybe 1 in the first quarter and then maybe 2 in the second half. It was in the first half.
All of this, going back to Rome Odunze, he had 14 receiving yards in the second half. Like they did all of this just like that, just snapping their fingers. Oh yeah, we want 700 yards of offense. Okay, we can do that. Oh, we probably could have put up 900 today if we really felt like it. That's the conversation that it feels like is going on around this team right now. The vibes are so high, and it's unreal. And you talked about one of your predictions that you had in the first segment. Here's my chance to bring up one of mine. I did say that German Bernard was going to score twice, and he was about 3 yards from doing that. And they did it. I thought it was really funny that the getting him the first score of the game felt very scripted. That felt like exactly what was going to happen the entire time. And then the fact that they just ran the same play on the very next drive, really, was just Ryan Grubb being like, yeah, I'm better than you. Stop me. Oh, you did. Okay, I'm still going to beat you.
So I'll tell you this about Grubb. When we talked to him on Monday, usually there was we go back to the Apple Cup when he said we knew what plays were going to hit. I think they honestly knew the first half was going to go the way that it did. Because when I saw him after the game and when I briefly spoke with him after the game before he was going to the team bus, he just had this smile where he's like, no, we came in with this Metallica mentality. We came in with this, hey, we are just going to drop the hammer. We're going to ride the lightning. We're going to, and which goes exactly. That's where this team was in lockstep today. There was no sacks. I mean, no. I don't believe, and that was with 3 changes on the offensive line. At least in the first half, not counting the entire second team offensive line getting in with Dylan Morris in the third quarter. So I think, at that point,
the third quarter,
but I think, that's also important for that whole unit to get that opportunity, because we saw Zach Henning, and we're not going to go on this for very long, but we saw Zach Henning at left guard.
Yeah.
He's a tackle. So I think all of these, Landon Hatchett played both center and guard today. I mean, I think there's so many things that are small, but are going to factor in for this team down the road that didn't even play a result in the blowout.
It's wild. And that's I feel like that's the point that we keep harping on, because, as we go through some of our YouTube comments from some point, by the way, that's my plug to just say, drop more comments below that we can try to answer questions, comments about the game. We'll throw as many of them up on the screen as we can. But that's one thing that I saw that from our video a couple weeks ago when we talked about is Washington the nation's best offense. There were the USC contingent of YouTube found it, and there were a bunch of comments just saying, "Oh, well, we'll see when UW plays USC." I don't like. Yeah, that's going to be a great offensive battle. Don't get me wrong. That's not what I'm saying here. But you just look at this wide receiver core that Washington has, and again, no disrespect to what USC has going on. I love watching Zachariah Branch. That dude can go. That dude can play. But Zachariah Branch, and this is where Washington is. Zachariah Branch, who is just blowing people away at USC, would be Washington's wide receiver 5 at best right now. Please tell me if you disagree.
I was gonna say just ahead of Denzel, below Jeremy.
Yep.
Yeah, that's a fair. I mean, yeah, basically. And then to be fair, the only reason Jeremy got certain plays today was because of the location of the game. Not that he wouldn't get those, and he will get those down the season. But I think there was. Let's face it. You mentioned this a little bit earlier. It was a concerted effort to get that first touchdown. I think.
Oh, it absolutely was.
There was a couple others where, but I do like that they didn't continue to go to that. Because, there easily could have been a script to get Jeremy for 180 and 3 touchdowns and do whatever. But that's not what this offense is predicated upon. But they do want to send messages in subtle ways. And I think every single touchdown kind of did that today, where Jeremy sets it up, Westover does it, Polk just ripping balls out of the sky at this point and just victimizing defensive backs. I mean, you really, any of these 2 through 4, right? Or 3 through 6 even, would be everybody else's number 1 or 2. Right.
And that's what sets this offense apart. And today we also saw a running game, which just is like, watch out, man. And we'll touch on I actually haven't heard this. I've been very busy working and doing all these things. Did Kalen DeBoer offer any type of update on Julius Buelow, who also left the game?
No, looked like he was able to walk a little bit. He said he would touch on a number of injuries on Monday. Buelow wasn't one that he specifically mentioned. I do believe Cameron Ficulano will be back next week, so that won't be a long term. But again, Asa turned it into play. There's a few. Mateo Melia didn't even. I don't believe that either of those two guys made the trip.
No, I don't believe they did.
So I believe those will be the 2 injuries that he talks about on Monday. Buelow,
Devon Banks might be there too. Thaddeus Dixon, man. I hop on the Thaddeus Dixon hype train before he leaves the station.
I go back and watch that game. He got burned a couple of times. So
he did, but he also had a really nice PBU, a couple of really nice PBUs in there too. I'm a big Thaddeus Dixon guy.
You know what? Okay, fine. You'll be Thaddeus Dixon for that. I'm just gonna look at the fact that Jabbar Muhammad wasn't even targeted today. I mean, he was.
Jabbar was excellent,
but all of the passes were over 5 yards to the receiver's head. Like there was no chance. Actually, the first one, Jabbar had a better chance of picking than anybody else did at Michigan State catching the ball. But aside from that,
careful.
Aside from that,
live podcast things.
Aside from that, it was lockdown, and that's I think what forced Noah Kim to look towards Thaddeus. I mean, there was a point in the game in the first half where it was Thaddeus Dixon on one side and Elijah Jackson on the other, with Leash Powell in the middle for no reason other than prove your guys' self.
Right.
That truly was because Jabbar had his helmet on top and he was not injured. He did not come out for any penalty or unsportsmanlike thing of any regard. I think that was a true test of Chuck Morrell to see what the secondary can do without such a lockdown corner. And to be fair, they forced a punt, did a couple of things, but I still think there's a significant gap between Jabbar and the other two. But I do think they, again, kind of took that next step this week.
No, I agree. And Sean Thomas seems to agree with this as well. Probably one of our more impressive defensive efforts in the DeBoer era so far as well, which was a good sign. And I do agree that there was a lot of things to like on the defensive side of the ball. And we will get to those in just a second here, because first, if you took the Husky spread, whatever it was on FanDuel, I think you did a very good thing there. And that's just one of many reasons that FanDuel is America's #1 sportsbook. And you can step into action this NFL season with FanDuel, which again is America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets, which are guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. That's $200 in bonus bets, whether you win or lose. If you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there's no better time to get in on the action. The app is so easy to use. There's a wide range of betting options, including spreads, player props, over-unders, and so much more. So all you have to do is visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and kick off the NFL season. FanDuel is an official partner of the NFL. And, you know, I think that's the biggest thing. I do wish that I saw some more pregame on what Jeremy Bernard's anytime touchdown line would have been. Definitely would have taken that. I probably would have slammed 2+ touchdowns. Wouldn't have had Jack Westover at 3+. But hey, you know, it is what it is.
I mean, would you have had Tybo Rogers leading the team in rushing yards after
I
that?
definitely wouldn't have had that one.
That one, I will say, that one even surprised me. That one, but we can continue that because I think we saw from Dylan Johnson what we needed to see. Right?
Yes,
we saw
absolutely.
enough.
Big runs. I think he's still probably 95%. I don't think he's truly at his full self. But there were some of those runs that it went from 3 yards to 10, 12 in a hurry because of his physicality. I think that's clearly something that Washington is missing. They missed the first 2 games that showed up and made a difference. So it's the release valve. It's that just take a little bit of pressure off, and honestly, they could have had more receptions if Penix turned to that side of the field.
Yep. No, absolutely. And that, like, it's so funny that we say these things because it's just splitting hairs at this point with the offense. Like the question for all of our audio listeners who will be listening to this after the fact is what other questions are there that need to be answered? Because the run game questions were answered. Yeah, there were still only, I say in air quotes here, 2 sacks of Noah Kim, both coming at the hands of Zion Tupuola-Fatui. So I think that even the pass rush, that answers that question because one of them was on the first drive of the game. And Lars, I kind of want to know what the reaction was in the box because Zion very obviously forced a fumble on Kim on that position. And that was one of the worst calls I've ever seen. I actually have a rant that I want to go on here in just a second. But first, I want to know what just the box felt after that Noah Kim fumble that was not called.
Yeah, that was a very much tone-setting play, both on execution and on officiating, because his arm was coming forward, but it wasn't even 3/4 forward. It wasn't even half forward. It's like, no, yes, he was loading up. Right? He was loading up, but he had not even hit the follow through. That should have been a fumble. It doesn't cost him, but yeah, please go on your end because I was about to lose it in the box. I'm like, man, if the officiating is going to be this bad throughout the game, Washington might lose this game. Not because they deserve to lose, but because of the officiating.
So I saw 2 bad things today.
That's it?
Well, hold on. The first one was the officiating. The second one was something you did not see, and that was the Peacock crew. The Peacock crew was horrendous. The entire first quarter, it was very clear they didn't read the pronunciation guides at all. And Chris Sims, I know some people love his take. Shout out to the Ringer fantasy football show who likes to call him the take god. He called Kalen DeBoer Ken throughout the game. How is there nobody in his ear saying, oh, sorry, yeah, Kalen DeBoer, and then emphasizing that at any point? That's terrible. That's just horrendous, man. Like, especially for a future Big Ten team, you're going to be covering this team a whole lot more. You better get familiar with them in some capacity. Like, I don't care if it's like, yeah, I still care if it's Tuli Gasanoa, which is a very hard name to say, but he's not going to be on the team next year. You know who is going to be leading this team for the foreseeable future? Ken DeBoer. It's terrible, man. Come on, figure it out.
Tuli led to Negasanoa. There's an N in there. Don't forget that. That was yeah. Well, so actually, peek behind the curtain. I was watching the Peacock stream on my phone, listening to it in AirPods while watching the game, just because for a peek behind the curtain here, the television. So here's something to keep in mind about the stream here. Because it's a streaming game, they weren't on the televisions like we usually have at Husky Stadium.
Right.
They were on the big screen at Michigan, but that was in Spartan Stadium. But that was it. So we there was a few of us on the beat that were like, hey, we might want to have access to the Peacock stream just in case we don't get the best reviews or the best sort of angles here from these calls.
Which still happened, by the way. Like every angle that I saw on Peacock, whether it was like the Fautano holding penalty, the Elijah Jackson call, like every single penalty, they basically refused to show a replay of, which was just terrible. Like, can we figure that out?
So part of that was the angle at which I think the cameras were just set up at, because on the Elijah Jackson one, it was still questionable, but you could kind of see some. I think it was more holding than pass interference early in the route, past the 5 yards. Really, that was kind of what they were losing out with that one. So the Fautano one, the Jalen McMillan hold, both of those were egregious. Neither of those were terrible penalties. If Jeff Schwartz, who, respect to Jeff Schwartz, played in the league, did all that.
I'm glad you're touching on this because I was about to.
If he is saying this is egregious and it's a Washington player, I think it's fair to say it's pretty freaking egregious.
That's brutal. So that's a question that Peacock needs to answer for down the line. I've got some sources on NBC that I'm gonna have to hit up and just say, hey, figure that out. But that's a story for another time. But the one question that I really do think that that I'm gonna take away from this is how many freshmen are not going to redshirt at this point, because Devin Bryant has played in 3 games now. Landon Hatchett, this is his first game, but with some of the injuries that we're seeing, it's starting to feel like he's going to, by necessity, need to be part of this rotation, even though, the coaching staff, like if Ryan Grubb, who was very, very complimentary of Landon throughout the preseason, has said that he's ready to be part of the rotation, that's great, but it's still just a whole different thing to just put a true freshman in there, especially at guard, and just say, yeah, go to work. And then Tybo Rogers, because man, like you said, if you predicted Tybo Rogers was going to lead the team in rushing yards this week, please leave a comment, and I will give you all of my money, and you can do whatever you want with it.
Yeah, I mean, it's really starting to become bizarre. I do think, though, that we're not going to see, as this team gets more into conference play, there's 2 routes this goes. All the freshmen play every single game because of blowouts in the first half and in the third quarter. But I think it's
fun for us.
But I think at some point you're going to have to tailor. I think Devin Bryant's probably going to play the majority of the games. I don't know if Landon will. Maybe he will just because of the injuries. Tybo, again, will he, won't he? The coaches kind of are going to have to make a decision. Is it worth burning these red shirts to get them game experience? I do think there actually is an argument to be had that yes, the answer is yes. It's worth burning Landon's red shirt. It's worth burning Tybo's red shirt. It's probably worth burning Tayshaun Lyon's red shirt, because these guys need to. Rashid and God is making me criminal. Who's the other receiver?
Keith Reynolds.
Keith Reynolds. Actually, Keith Reynolds also was out there a little bit. I don't know if he got in the game. I want to say he did. Again, fourth quarter, late in the game, not really much of an impact. He did travel, did suit, did all that sort of thing. But I think for these guys, it's about getting game reps, and I think it might actually be worth it to run.
So I'm going to take an expression out of your book here. To your point, the one place, bang, yeah, you're welcome. The one place where I did kind of want to see, and this is going to sound really disrespectful, and I don't mean this in any way, shape, or form. When I was watching that Darren Barkins play where he got burnt, I was just kind of like, because I was really hoping that was going to be Curly Reed, Leroy Bryant, or Caleb Presley that was there. Not saying that I wanted to see them get burnt, but I just wanted to see them in the game just to see what they have. Because this was the perfect opportunity to not only just kind of test them and just say, okay, what do you have? But also just like, yeah, we're playing at Michigan State right now. We're blowing them out. Please go play a series. Let's have some fun. You deserve this.
I think that speaks more to the fact of the coaching situation at their position than it does anything else. I think they're willing to play guys who have college experience, who have game experience. I mean, Vincent Holmes didn't get in the game, and they were decimated in safety. So I think, there's certain positions where if you're going to get guys in, you're going to get guys in. Tristan Dunn got a decent amount of reps as a redshirt freshman. So I think those 3 freshmen might get 4 games or 5 games in Pac-12 play later in the year, that sort of thing.
Sure.
But I just think that there's a specific reason why those freshmen aren't necessarily as much in the rotation as we would think.
So I don't think it has anything to do with that, personally. I think that what it has to do with is just the amount of bodies that are in front of them. Because at corner, they're like without Devon Banks, who did not play today. We'll probably learn more about him on Monday. There's Jabbar, there's Elijah Jackson, there's Thaddeus Dixon, and then you get into Mish Powell, who can still play outside if you need him to, and you can put Tristan Dunn at Husky, and then you get into Darren Barkins, you get into Javion Green, and then the freshman. So it's probably more of a depth thing than it is anything else. And just saying, okay, well, why are we going to throw these guys out there when we have these guys who might make a quicker impact for us, who, like you said, have those reps before, we get to the true freshmen who are just really getting the experience to get that game experience.
Right, exactly. I mean, you hit the nail on the head, which is why I thought Javion Green would get in a little bit more in the first couple of games. I think we talked about that on the show, where I was like, okay, he's probably that next guy up behind Thaddeus and Devon, those sort of guys. But it took him a while to get in the game. I mean,
I do have a take about that. I do have a take about that. And he's going to play a lot because his red shirt is already burnt. But I feel like they're going to treat this year as a redshirt year for Javion Green. Because of all the injuries last year, he didn't get a chance to sit and learn and do everything. And because one thing that I loved about him watching him last year, the one thing he showed, like when he did play, was how physical he is and how strong he is, which was super duper impressive. And I really, really love that. But he was overly aggressive at points, which led to him getting burnt by, Troy Franklin and a couple other times. But when we just kind of look at what he does bring to the table, giving him that year to sit and just kind of, okay, I'm going to take everything in. I'm still probably going to play late in some of these games, especially in some of these blowouts. But we don't really have to worry about the red shirt at this point anymore. So what's the harm in just letting him sit and learn, especially behind Jabbar, who I asked Juice Brown about him on Wednesday, and he just said, yeah, he's brought so much to this room, not just on the field and what he's able to do, but off the field because he's teaching, he's tutoring everybody all the time. He's brought over so many new things that these guys have learned, and it's just everybody loves talking to him, loves learning from him. So that's a really big benefit that I think that he, and just an added thing that he brings to the table.
Yeah, well, I think maybe I should, just before we wrap up here, I do want to clarify that point. Is I don't think that it's because of the coaching situation. I just think because it's the coaching situation that put them in last season to where, again, like I said, that's why I wanted you have Darren Barkins and things like that to get those reps. I think it's more or less to the point of that. I just wanted to clarify that I don't think it's because like Juice Brown is holding the freshman back, right? I think it's because there's so many, to your point, bodies in front of him.
Yeah.
And I think you'd rather just roll with these guys than try and bring those guys. Not that you don't want to bring them along, but let the players coach them up a little bit more. Let get the experience in the program and things like that, and show the guys that played last year and that have game experience more of an opportunity than the freshmen.
Lars, as always, thank you for taking your time to do this, especially since you are in East Lansing, so now you have a lot ahead of you to make sure that you are back here in Seattle tomorrow, and we will talk to you all again on Monday. If you have any questions for us, please make sure to leave them down in the YouTube comments. We really appreciate all of you taking your time to join us on this Saturday night. This has been a lot of fun. We're hoping to do some more lives after games. We won't be doing one next week because that is a 7:30 kickoff, and that would be the worst thing in the world to get back home at 1:30 or 2 in the morning and then record a podcast. So we will talk to you guys on Monday. Please make sure to like, comment, subscribe, follow us on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts. We are on there. Leave us a 5-star review. We do apologize for some of the audio issues today that you might hear, but again, we really appreciate you all sticking with us, and we will talk to you on Monday.